what do you feel is one good technique of doing it? Do you think that just slowing things down and showing things several times over is a good way? Because in many cases, these kinds of things move very quickly. So you can, we know that on a subconscious level, we pick up things. Doesn't matter if it's upside down, mirrored, or if it's moving very fast. The unconscious mind absorbs it and soaks it up, so to speak, anyway. But by showing it more slowly, or maybe perhaps repetitive many times, you actually get a chance for the conscious mind to also pick up on it.
Yes.
Is that one of the techniques that you use?
Yes, that's one of the primary techniques is slowing things down, because oftentimes the subliminal manipulation happens within a very brief moment of time. Even the symbols like the symbols that we see when we're driving along the road, and they're up on the different ads that are by the highway that you just drive past, and you really don't pay a notice of them. They pass by so quickly, and part of it is because it passes by so quickly, we don't really register it on a conscious level, but of course the subconscious picks up everything. So one of the strategies that I use, and I'm very particular about this, is to slow particular things down. And what you find in media, movies, music videos, so forth, is oftentimes the subliminal is placed, in terms of the imagery, is placed within a very short time frame, and sometimes it's just a quick flash. But then once you start to reclaim your sight, when the flash happens, most people don't even see it. But when you start to go through the process of reclaiming your sight, you already instinctively see, say, wait a minute, there's something there. What was that? And people, they'll look at you like, what are you talking about? I didn't see anything. And then you say, well, wait a minute, let me freeze this. And you slow it down and you freeze it. And then you realize, okay, now I understand, what it was that I was seeing. So that's one part. But there's also just on an intuitive level, as human beings, most of the manipulation that's going on around us, we are aware of it on some level. However, most of us, we've been indoctrinated into a system, via the school system, via the relationships that we have with people, all these different constructs, be it religious institutions, all these different constructs have literally indoctrinated our vision, so that when we actually see these things and it makes us feel uncomfortable, we will reject it outright and not really deal with the underlying things. And I can just give you an example. Like my family and I, we have 4 children, so our family time isn't about sitting in front of a television. That's not family time. Because what that really is a group of people sitting in front of a television to be mind controlled, to be mind. And how can you call that family time? But what's interesting is if in fact my family sits down and we watch collectively, we watch a film that we've already screened, we're consciously aware of everything that's taking place. So if something comes up that doesn't seem right, we'll talk about it. Now, the difference is that there are people who they will sit and they will watch, and instead of consciously recognizing that there is something there that doesn't seem right, they'll ignore it altogether. In some cases, they can't see it, but in other cases, they can see it, but they don't want to deal with that reality. And so part of what really needs to happen, especially in terms of protecting our children's consciousness from different levels of mind control, mind manipulation, and subconscious manipulation, is we have to be courageous enough and willing enough to intellectualize what we see and then deal with it on an intellectual level, to say, no, okay, wait a minute. If in fact this doesn't make me feel right, then I need to turn this off. But unfortunately, many people, they would just go along with the program, even if it makes them feel uncomfortable, and then subject themselves and their children to mind control and mind manipulation.
One reason I think why they want to do that, or why they end up in that situation, is they consider the TV or the film or whatever to kind of be the retreat, the time to relax and to just have a good time and not think about all the stuff and all the worries in the world. And in one way, that means that you kind of let down your guard in that sense. You know what I mean? And that's when they hit you. And it's really a smart technique in one way to actually reach through people in that way. But again, as you say, it's like it's not an excuse in one way to be lazy, because if you're not aware of this stuff that you're talking about, and what we'll go in more detail in this program here, then that is gonna in one way affect you. And in many cases, you have to ask yourself: do I want to be affected by this, or do I not want to have this in my life? Do I not want to be affected by this? Then I have to have a conscious way of blocking this out, or in some way at least be aware of how it's trying to program me. But again, that idea that there actually are people who just want to sit down, they want to relax, they don't want to deal with all this stuff. And I think that that's primarily the problem here, so to speak. But the way you go about it then is that you actually you take it from an intellectual point of view, I guess, and you try to break it down for what it actually is. Is that correct, Lenon?
Yes, and one cannot be lazy, consciously lazy in order to do that, you know?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's
that's
what's
right.
yeah, that's really powerful about the television is in terms of just in terms of how people engage it, it's actually a submissive act because you basically hand your consciousness over to the television. And in a deeper sense, the television really functions in modern society as the God being.
Yeah,
Really, it does. Now, I'm not talking about the creator because there's a difference between gods and creator. I'm talking about the construct of the God and within religious institutions. The television really plays a much more major role in terms of manipulating human consciousness than any other institution on planet Earth. That includes religion, right?
yeah,
So,
yeah,
part of what happens within religious institutions is people have to submit themselves to certain kinds of dogma, certain kinds of ritualistic practices, certain kinds of ideologies about our relationship to the God beings and indeed our relationship to the creator. The television does exactly the same thing. You literally have to submit your consciousness. And that's why when people sit in front of the television, if you look at their face, they don't even appear to be present anymore. They are
yeah. That's right.
hypnotized. They're literally
Yes.
hypnotized and they are no longer functioning as a sentient being. They are literally accepting the programming. So you can, and part of it has to do with the laziness, but you have to submit your consciousness and you cannot think critically about what you see, what you hear, what you feel if in fact you are being lazy and you have already submitted yourself to the basically the agenda, and really the agenda of the television is to program human consciousness. And I should say that all agendas on planet Earth, from my research and understanding of things, and as limited as it may be, I've come to realize that all agendas, whether it's a New World Order agenda, whether it's the Borg agenda, whether it's the feminization of men agenda, or the sexualization of technology, all agendas really come down to the manipulation of human consciousness. And so therefore, anything that manipulates human consciousness is a powerful tool, and it can be used for good, it can be used for harm. Television, however, has always been used to harm human consciousness, to program people to live out lives that are not in line with what they chose prior to manifesting here. And that is to say that
Yeah.
prior to even coming to this realm, we already have established in our own consciousness on a soul level why we chose to manifest here and the experiences that we have. But we have constructs such as television, which really reprogram us to function on levels that we didn't intend to in the first place. And so that's why television is such a powerful tool in terms of manipulating human consciousness. And it holds profound, it has a profound impact on not only the individual's consciousness and on a soul level, but also the consciousness of all of humanity on planet Earth.
That is really interesting. I want to definitely talk more about this, the soul level later on in the program as we've go deeper into this. But one thing I want to ask you about, or check rather, if you kind of have looked into this or not, is this idea about the particular frequency from the TV as well, the kind of hypnotic nature, as you mentioned, of the television technology. It's producing, I think it is a theta wave. Basically, it's called entrainment, and our brain actually starts to kind of mimic the frequency of the TV, which means that we basically end up in a kind of dream state. Have you looked into this at all?
Yes, this is true, and this is part of one of the reasons why television is such a has such a hypnotizing effect on human consciousness. And one of the things I talked about, like this was like months ago, like and this gets into one of the films that I produced. It's called the Creator Series. One of the most egregious lies that we've been told about who and what we are as human beings. We've been told that we are these three-dimensional beings that just come to this planet for a couple of years, and we may do a few things, but then after that, it's time to split, and we may go to a good place after that, or we may go to a bad place, but that's pretty much it. That's life, you know?
Yeah.
And what's really, in terms of what and who and what we are as human beings, it's important that we begin to look at ourselves in a different light. And that is to say that we are much more profound than that. We are much more powerful than that. Our ability to create, consciously is profound. We can create all sorts of things. My wife and I, we created children. And in that creative act, there is a certain level of power that is associated with that. We just created two human beings. That's powerful. So one of the things that has happened, and television plays a major role, is just in terms of how we perceive ourselves as human beings has been so degraded that we will submit ourselves to all other forms of of programming which dictates to us who and what we are. Because ultimately, if we see ourselves as less than everything else in the universe, then we basically submit our consciousness to other forces which will then dictate to us who and what we are.